Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I was recently at a family event, and this is a family, as many, that had tensions between different parts in the family. And I knew it was there in the older members of the family, but here I noticed that the younger members somehow were also replicating some of those ways of talking and thinking and perceiving. It was just challenging, heartbreaking to really see the generational movement of brokenness, of negativity. Maybe it's that way in every family. But in our parsha this week, Joseph is Jacob's 11th youngest son. And yet Jacob favors him above all the others. And he gives him the multicolored coat, the katone pasim. And as the Torah says, his brothers saw that their father favored him, so they hated Joseph, their young brother. Then Joseph brings reports of his brother's evil doings to his father, and they hate him even more. And then he tells them the dream that they're all stars and sheaves of wheat bowing down to him, and he hates them even more. And yet the bad feelings go even back to before the sons are all born, because Joseph was the son of Rachel, and his brothers, except for the young Benjamin, who was not involved in this whole story, were the sons of Leah and the handmaids. And Jacob really loved Rachel. He fell in love with her the moment he saw her. But he found himself married to Leah because of his uncle's deception, Laban's deception. And so the two sisters have been in competition with each other about who would have the most children, who was the most loved. And Leah kept having children, but she was not loved. And Rachel was barren until Joseph was born. But she was loved, and she then died in childbirth when Benjamin was born. And Jacob had wanted to live out his peace, as the commentators say, to live his life out the last years in Canaan without worry. But all those family dynamics followed him into the next part of his life. And the Or HaChaim, a Moroccan commentator, teaches that Jacob loved Joseph so much, they loved Joseph more than all of his other children combined. And he loved Benjamin too, but Benjamin was the cause of his wife dying in childbirth, and so he couldn't feel the same love. And so his sons were really continuing the tragedy of their mothers, of their rivalry, of their father's love of one over the others, and their own generational version of this conflict. And their father was just continuing the same kind of difficult life of the heart that he had done before, Lador Vador, from generation to generation. So the Torah points out the inner workings of this our most holy family in Judaism for all to see and to learn. And its wisdom is that we should all be aware of how powerful those feelings are and resist them where we can. And love is portrayed as capricious when it's not distributed equally, when it favors some over others. And the Torah says and points out the destructiveness of those forces and how it harms people across generations, the loss of trust, the rising of jealousies, of perceptions, and how later generations do not even know where the feud started, but they know how to act within it. They're impacted. And also the power when you finally can heal some of those troubles. And the climax of the whole story comes later on in the stories of Joseph, when Joseph finally turns down the opportunity for vengeance against his brothers many decades later as ruler of Egypt, and he forgives them. And they all weep, and they find that intergenerational healing. We can imagine that their mothers in heaven were also weeping that day, seeing that healing and love finally replacing the jealousy and the rivalry. And also that within all that strife, the Torah shows us there are also forces beyond our reckoning and understanding. It doesn't excuse how some of them acted, but if it wasn't for the brothers' strife, would the family have ended up in Egypt? And if they hadn't ended up in Egypt, would we have received the Torah? We never know where it all leads us. But all we can do our best is to heal, to turn away from brotherly and sisterly strife, and to understand the generational issues, and to work for reconciliation, and to have faith and find comfort that we're doing so as part of a much greater story of healing and of movement that we often realize. And to know there's a greater hand behind all of it, and to see that if we strive to do our part, all will be made right in the end, while having compassion for the failing of others and the imperfections of others, and humility in our own judgments. For we never know what is the full story behind how others are and how it's playing before our eyes. May we all see and acknowledge the pain across generations. May we find compassion and understanding. May love heal all the wounds. Shabbat Shalom.